Recording in progress.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Oceanside Planning Commission meeting for May 9th. I forgot to do that part. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Vice Chair Morrissey, if you could lead us.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. City Planner, if you would please do the roll call.
Chairman Rosales.
Present.
Commissioner Balba.
Present.
Commissioner Dodds.
Present.
Vice Chair Morrissey.
Present.
Commissioner
Here.
Simons.
Present.
Let the record show that all members are present.
Thank you. Item 1 on our agenda, as always, is communications for matters not on the agenda tonight. Do we have any slips to speak?
Yes, Commissioner, thank you. We have 2. I have Neil Nagata and Jimmy Seville. If you'll come in that order, and you each get 3 minutes.
Come on up. For the record, if you would state your name, please.
Yes, Neil Nagata. Honorable Planning Commission members, thank you for allowing me time to speak. I'm a third-generation farmer, and my family has been in Oceanside since the early 1900s. We live, farm, and own property in South Morro Hills area. It has come to my attention that there's been some confusion on the South Morro Hills plan that was presented earlier to the Planning Commission by staff. I'd like to state that many of the large commercial farmers and landowners, such as myself, along with city staff, and working many hours with the citizens of Oceanside to develop this plan. I'm in strong support of moving forward in planning the South Morro Hills area. This includes agricultural tourism, economic development, and housing. The reason that we began this process many years ago was to plan the future. We've been farming in Oceanside for more than 80 years and plan on continuing to do so as long as possible. We do not know what the future of farming will be. I do know that we have many challenges, including labor, water, the cost and availability of supplies, and the rules and regulations that we're subject to. Every day it's harder to stay in business. We must plan, take into consideration the economic realities, a development plan, infrastructure, and items to be included within the area. With this being said, the framework of the plan has a great deal to offer the city for its economic development and structural needs for the city to prosper into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Next speaker.
Thank you. I'm Jimmy Saville, and I'm sure that you heard that Elon Musk is buying Twitter, and I don't need to tell you that this is one of the greatest threats to our democracy ever. He's made it clear that he's going to transform it into a free speech platform, which is just a code word for Nazism, and he's going to stop banning and censoring so many conservatives. But tell me where in the Constitution it says that somebody has the right to say something that might hurt another person's feelings or post memes on the internet making fun of them. But people are posting memes making fun of Joe Biden's age and even saying that he is senile. So how is it that us Democrats are going to win the midterms later this year, let alone the 2024 presidential election, if we're not able to control the flow of information on the most powerful social media platform on the planet? Twitter drives the news cycle. What if Elon stops employees from manually inserting topics into the trending list? How is everybody going to learn about the important holidays like Pansexual Awareness Day or Gender Non-Binary Teacher Appreciation Week? But things will get even worse. White, cisgender, heteronormative Trump supporters will be able to post racist facts and statistics. I'm already seeing tweets from people like Larry Elder talking about the fatherlessness problem in the black community and the 75% out of wedlock birth rates. Do we really need people having those kinds of discussions on social media when it reflects poorly on Black Lives Matter in an election cycle? I don't think so. And what if Twitter stops people from putting their preferred pronouns in their Twitter bio? Have you ever thought about that? You know, this is an insult to the LGBTQAIP2K plus community. And I have an adopted African-American gender non-binary 3-year-old, and I don't know if it's going to be safe for him to be playing on Twitter anymore. If Elon Musk is going to be reinstating Donald Trump's Twitter account. Mark Zuckerberg, on the other hand, is doing a great job of keeping conservatives off of his platform. And you know that if you link up a news story about a black person that commits a hate crime against a white person, that'll get shadow banned or even taken down? Because we don't need that kind of news being spread around, now do we? And thankfully, Joe Biden's starting the Ministry of Truth, and headed up by the great Nina Jankowicz, so that they're going to be telling us what is and isn't the truth, because people are spreading all kinds of misinformation out there. You know that they're saying things like men can't get pregnant and that black people can be racist too, and other ridiculous falsehoods. So if anybody has any ideas on how we can stop Elon Musk from allowing free speech on Twitter and undermining our democracy, I'm all ears. You know, I'm willing to do anything. Anyone?
Thank you.
Am I the only one that sees this? I know that there are thousands of us on Twitter who are seeing this and terrible threat to democracy. And we're going to do everything that we can to try to save what's left of America. Otherwise, Donald Trump's going to be having a voice on social media again, and we certainly don't want those mean tweets. I'll take a depression, and I'll take an inflationary depression and anything other than Donald Trump's tweets. No, I don't stand alone on that.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Okay, approval of the minutes from our last meeting. Offer the opportunity to provide input. Otherwise, I look for a motion for approval of those minutes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion, Vice Chair Morrissey, second, Commissioner Custard. Any discussion? Don't see any, so we will look for a yes or no on your vote. Are we going to use our screen this evening? Is mine. Let's just do for the moment, let's just do oh, there we go. Thank you. Go ahead and vote.
Chairman Rosales, let the record show that the motion's approved 6-0.
Thank you. Moving along, consent calendar. I don't see anything on tonight's agenda. Transportation items, I don't see anything agendized for discussion either. And under public hearings, no items for consideration tonight. So we'll go to appeal of city planner's determination. That too does not have anything listed for tonight's agenda. So we'll move to discussion items. We do have two items. Item one is capital improvement program budget general plan for fiscal year 22-23. We're going to have a staff presentation. David Toshak, the city's principal engineer, will be doing the presentation. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Okay, good evening. Council Chair and Council Commissioners, thank you for having me this evening. I have up on the display here what was presented at the workshop April 13th by the city engineer. I'll kind of highlight it just so that you're familiar with it and get through it fairly quickly, but I had previously handed out a handout of the budget book, sheets within the budget book, the total sum, the summary page in each of the programs that have new projects. In general, the majority of projects, vast majority, 90% of the projects are carry forward from the previous year. So I'll highlight on some of the newer projects that we're proposing in the budget. And for this evening, we're asking for your consideration of making a determination that the CIP budget 22-23 is consistent with the master plan. Quickly looking through the handout, the first page and title sheet. The total budget this year is $164 million. Of that, 87 million of it is in water and sewer projects. Those projects are all carry forward projects. They have no new projects coming on this fiscal year. Quick look at the Transnet program. We have 2 projects, a bicycle master plan coordinator. That position is filled and has been filled for quite some years. We just identified it as an actual position and project this year. Another project that's identified new is the Pierview Way Bridge, PDR. That project is ongoing. It's basically in schematic drawings, and we're reaching out to the public to discuss what can be done with that project, but we're moving forward and hoping to move into design in the next year or so. Thoroughfare program. This is also something that's fairly regular that we do. It is this year we've identified new signals and signal modifications throughout the city. Moving on to SB1 program. Our new projects are pedestrian warning systems and radar feedback signals at 3 different locations. And then our pavement management program. Over the years, we've been doing our pavement management, different types of methods, slurry seal, overlay. We've introduced full depth reclamation over the last several years, which is where we don't rip out the entire street and rebuild it. We actually recycle the product and put people back on the street a little faster. We save about 30% in materials doing it that way. But the pavement management program is actually an analysis. We're going to go back out, hire a consultant, and they will go back and assess how well we've done over the last 7 to 10 years. And they'll reevaluate what we call the PCI, which is our pavement condition index. It's basically a rating of how well our streets are doing. When we did the last study in 2013, we had a PCI of 61 out of 100, which for a city this age, that's expected. Projections have put us down to a little bit less than 50, or not less than 50, but less than 60, around 58. So we're going to see a true analysis of that pavement, including what they call pavement deflections. We'll go out there with a load, we'll put it in the pavement, see how it deflects, and see how well we're doing. So, but these are all very common projects. We've done radar feedback. The last one we've done, I believe, was on Canyon, and then pedestrian warning signs. We built one a couple years ago out at the harbor at the location of that pedestrian tunnel that goes underneath the railroad tracks. So similar projects, but new to this year's budget. Parks programs, the only thing new there is basically play structure citywide. They're getting a little old and needing replacement and maintenance. Similar with our municipal buildings program, a lot of repair work. Libby Lakes roof, fire station, miscellaneous improvements there as well, roof and generator and paint. A new assessment here is we've had staff working on ADA assessments. So we've identified a need for a project there. We call it ADA citywide, basically citywide ADA assessments. So this is all encompassing. People call up, compliance standards if we're meeting the current standards, and people calling up concerned about ADA access. We have an individual and a program that will look citywide and try to address issues to the best of our ability with the funding that we have. Moving on to miscellaneous capital projects. We have a Tyson Bluff project. Now that's right here outside of, at the end of Tyson, at the restroom facility there. There's a bluff there. And at this point, it's starting to undermine the sidewalk and the bluff a little bit. So we're looking at what we can do with the Coast Commission and do some improvements there to try to stabilize that slope if at all possible before we start losing the sidewalk in the street. Grants projects. We have a lot of work going on there with the funds that have become available. Storm drain projects, we do both. An ongoing problem we have right now is that an old pipe that was installed in the mid-70s, corrugated metal pipe, is corroding, and so it fails. It undermines streets in some cases, so we go back and try to get those before we have any type of failures in our streets and on slopes and neighborhoods, things of that nature. A couple other projects you'll see there, fire training tower, that's ongoing project, trying to finish that up with some new funds. And then our Brooks and Crown Street sidewalks, both ADA compliant issues that we're dealing with there. Fire station number 1 continues and going into construction at this point. It's currently out to bid. So that's kind of more of a change in phase than a new project. So we're going from design into construction. So that's why we list it as a new project. Now moving on to Measure X funds, some of the things that are being proposed is moving on and moving forward with the OPD, Oceanside Police Department Headquarters expansion study, moving that into trying to identify location and firm that up. We're currently looking at several locations versus existing location, and that's still in its infancy as far as identifying a location for that new facility. So those are pretty much the highlights of the new projects, but again, the majority of the programs and basically a balance of about 57 million or $77 million is all of CIP, the various programs that I just pointed out to you. I'll walk through the presentation a little bit, so if you have some questions about that, we'll take care of some of those issues. So, again, not much going on with the water department. The projects that are and have been accepted as conforming to the plan are moving forward this year. Let's see, I think I'm actually in the wrong file. Apologize for that. So again, I mentioned, I do want to correct my staff report. I had mentioned that there were, in 2 locations, I had a mistake. I had 12 programs identified in one section and 14 in the other. There are actually 15 programs, and they're identified correctly in the handout I've given you. You can see the majority of the work, or just pretty split fairly evenly down the middle here in the pie chart between sewer and water, taking about half, a little over half the pie chart, and the rest is our various 14 or 13 other programs. Again, carry forwards is, again, information being presented to council at the April 13th workshop. This money is going to the development impact fees that we're gathering. There was adjustment, 30%. Is a balance coming to general fund. In this case, we have a project identified that we've been working on for some years, and that is College, the widening of College. It's not really a widening project. We're modifying intersections, adding turn pockets, and things of that nature, basically from Old Grove to Waring. These projects continue. Slurry Seal Street project overlay program, that project had just went out to bid on Friday, so we'll be gathering bids and hoping to go to council in June. Last meeting in June 22nd, to award construction for the overlay and Slurry Seal project. We're expecting about $1.3 million project this year. We've kind of modified things. This project used to be done in the winter time. We had to fight temperatures and deliveries in the winter time. We just get a better project if we do this work in the summertime. Try to avoid major holidays, try to avoid and fit it into the school season, but we get a better project, and then again, bumping up that PCI that I had mentioned earlier. Coast Highway Bridge Project, Douglas Bridge Project, those are actually my projects, working with Caltrans funding sources, unfunded projects. They are very short on Monday, and we're staying along. The good thing about those projects is they are seismic retrofit projects, so they have a high ranking. And we actually cleared environmental on one project just in March. We cleared environmental on Douglas, and we're looking to clear environmental on Coast Highway here shortly. There are projects I mentioned, Coast Highway Design. That RFP is going out fairly shortly. I think we'll have the RFP out for the corridor design in the next week or two. Again, this is another funding. We have 3 funding sources for our pavement overlay program, Slurry Seal, overlays, ODEP reclamation, and those programs are gas tax, SB1, Transnet, and Measure X money. I had just mentioned the PMP program a little while ago. Drainage districts, we have a major project going out to bid. We've been working on this for quite some time. It's the Cleveland Storm Drain Project. That one, to give you some details about it, it starts at Surfrider, runs down Cleveland to, it starts at Seagaze, runs north on Cleveland to Seagaze to Surfrider. Then on Surfrider goes from Cleveland down to the beach. There was a lot of kind of coordination with our friends at Coastal Commission and NCTD. Basically, we need an agreement to go underneath the railroad tracks. We're talking a 72-inch casing or 6-foot diameter casing that has to go in the railroad tracks there. And so that was a lot of coordination, and obviously well, it's not obvious, but the new alignment follows the existing alignment of the storm drain system. So we're going to be very careful what we do as far as, removing a storm drain and then working through the winter, because this project is anticipated to take about 19 months. Parks projects continue. We have a variety of them that we added to the budget last year, and those projects are ongoing. So nothing new this year to consider. Harbor had the one project I'd mentioned, gates, the harbor dock and approach gates. Typical projects, these are still ongoing and moving forward. Fire training tower should be done the next month or so, but we keep it on the budget book just in case we run into some problems here at finishing the project up. Fire station number 8, design, fire station number phase 2. That is fire station number 4. We did some work a couple years ago, improved the dining area, improved the work area. Now we're looking at the rooms and the basically showers, trying to update that facility. Miscellaneous projects I had mentioned, the Tyson Bluff sand replacement. That is ran out of our Public Works Department using, but it's included in our CIP program. Underground utilities, that's going well. That project is in conjunction with SDG&E. They're actually doing the design for us, and then we reimburse them with the DIF fees that we collect for those types of projects. So we're underwriting that. We have our design from SDG&E, and so we're reviewing that. Staff is reviewing that for utility conflict. Grants, this is a variety of projects, either FHWA through Caltrans. The beachfront improvement is a state grant. Coastal Rail Trail is an ATP grant, so that's an active transportation grant. Laurel Street is also, I believe, ATP. We also have 8 SIP projects, and we finished one of those up on Douglas. We did Douglas Medium Project. If you were familiar with that, we finished that up fall of last year. Thoroughfare signal projects, again, College Boulevard we're working on, and then a lot of, just improvements citywide with signals, road widths, and general increasing circulation throughout the city. Medicare X funds, a major contributor to a lot of our projects that were short on funds, either through SB1 or through Transnet, so that's being applied on various types of projects. And then this list of projects that just were identified to city councils as projects that are on wish lists that we need to find funding for over the next years. I don't really have a time frame on that, but these are projects that you'll see are numerous and extremely expensive. So those are our future of Oceanside. And then again, I won't talk to Lindsay. If you have questions about water utilities projects or sewer projects, I could get your comments back to Lindsay, who's the principal in that department. So that concludes my presentation. We're requesting that you make a determination that the CIP 2223 is consistent with the master planning document. Thank you very much. Any questions you have, I could go off to the side.
Yeah, thanks, David. I do have a couple of questions. You mentioned a couple of different funding opportunities. Measure X, one of your bullet points was the American Rescue Plan Act, and then grants. Did the city pursue any funding through the Infrastructure Improvement Jobs Act, IIJA, that you're familiar with?
No, I'm not familiar with that. We just recently applied for a grant for one of the bridge projects that was short on funding, the Douglas Retrofit Project. We looked at Cal OES for potential to work on some funding there that I've been involved with, but I'm not familiar with the current grant you mentioned, but I could follow up with city manager's office.
But as a strategy, nevertheless, the city makes it a regular habit to pursue grant funding and other perhaps federal SANDAG funding where it fits, where it's so we're competitive to look after trying to find that funding. That's probably...
Yes. We have a city manager's office has their own grant writer, so we actually go through a process of determining whether we should hire one of our own consultants to do it or use the city manager's office, and it's a variety of grants. So yes, we actively pursue it, so does the Water Utilities Department.
Great, thank you. Any questions for David? Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Ballmer.
That was
That was a lot.
That was a lot.
Yeah, well, again,
I was trying to catch up with you when I was looking at all the screens. I'm going, oh my gosh, there's so many. I mean, I know that you guys have picked this over and it's all done. It's great. And we're just trying to, whatever things we could come up with and questions is just, ancillary at this point. But I do have a couple of kind of questions. The master plan we're currently working on right now, does that come out of out of this budget, or is it out of a grant funding project? What does that, I didn't know which of these programs it's listed in. Oh.
Commissioner Balma, what you're being asked to do tonight is to make a finding that the proposed capital improvement budget is consistent with the general plan of the city, the existing general plan, not any master plan, any specific funding source or anything like that.
Okay, don't ask any specific questions. Okay. I do have one question. That it's an unfunded project, but what is the idea for the Pierview Way Bridge replacement? What's that idea, even though it's unfunded?
So the idea, and we've gotten some support from historical groups, Commissioner, is that we'd like to, and we think it's less expensive to replace the structure and make it look like the original structure versus trying to retrofit the existing structure. Things are kind of bulky because if you leave the existing columns where they are, you have to contain them with more rebar to meet current seismic standards. So you can get the same effect by knocking the structure down and rebuilding it. So we're looking at that aspect. We're still in against schematic designs. Part of that schematic design includes the lifeguard headquarters. So in 85, there was a project that they actually moved the lifeguard headquarters underneath the facility. So because that structure was actually built in 1926 with very little retrofits or modifications to it, it's gone past its service life. I mean, bridges basically go about 75 years for service life, or over 90 now. So the concept here is to go in there and basically rebuild the structure, improve some of the access, ADA compliant issues, and also improve the lifeguard headquarters. But the concept of leaving them where they're at came about some years ago, back in the early, I'd say 2012 period. We looked at putting a third story on the restroom facility we're building right now. That would have put it above Pacific Street, so we didn't move forward with that, and the lifeguards prefer the location they're in. So we're going to keep them under the structure and then basically improve showers, facilities, garages, whatever we can work with. So at this point, we've been trying to work with the Coast Commission to get their input before we go out to the public and present our ideas to them. So we're very early in the project.
Okay. Where in Fire Mountain is undergrounding actually occurring?
That is on Fire Mountain, basically across Eternal Hills. There was agreement some years ago with Eternal Hills to get some funding to do the undergrounding. So we're basically going from, I can't remember the starting point, but we're all going all the way to El Camino Real on that project. So we're dropping the power poles. There is some coordination with the Water Utilities Department. They're dropping in the reclaimed water line. And we also provide power to one of the reservoirs up there too. So there's some coordination going on between those three. And then the residents as well, working with them to figure out how to get the power supply back to their house after we drop the line underground. But we're pretty close to that project. There's some land acquisition. My predecessor, Gary Kellison, was working on some of that work to get some of the land that we needed to get through there.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dodds, you had a question?
Just curious, with the thoroughfare program, what exactly is going to be done with the College Boulevard Bridge?
Well, it's not the bridge. We're staying off the bridge. We're starting basically a little further up, basically a Vista Way. So we're going basically north up to Old Grove. So we're not widening. There's some issues where we have to kind of drop in a turn pocket or widen a shoulder, add a bike lane. So we call it widening because that's what kind of we named it a long time ago, probably about 10, 12 years ago. But it's a lot of more kind of intersection improvements more than a widening project. Fine.
I think we're done with questions for the moment.
Yeah, I'm sorry, a little fast, of course, but
no, it's okay.
Lots of information. I'm available. You can get my email contact through Sergio or contact me directly. Any questions you might come up after the fact. We did put the budget book online for you to look at if you haven't gotten through it. If you have any questions, that's fine. We can address them. But again, going to council is scheduled for June 8th, I believe.
Thank you.
Sure.
So this item does offer public testimony. If anybody on the public would like to provide some feedback, input? I don't see anybody rushing forward, so the recommended action on this item, thank you again, David, is to adopt Resolution 2022-P17, which would then in turn recommend that the City Council approve this item, and then we will have done our part. I'll look for a motion or further discussion, whatever your pleasure is, Commissioners.
I'll make a motion. Do you want me to read those? Okay, staff recommends the Planning Commission. Is that what I'm supposed to read?
Yeah, the page 1 of agenda.
Yeah, okay.
Report number 4. Go ahead.
That the Planning Commission determined that the proposed capital improvement program for fiscal year 22-23 for the City of Oceanside is in conformance with the general plan and adopt Planning Commission resolution number 2020 P10 as attached.
Should that be 2022 P10? It's written as 2020.
Probably 2022 P10.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have a motion with the corrected verbiage from Commissioner Custer. Can I get a second on that motion?
I'll second.
And a second by Commissioner Baumann. Thank you. Let's vote.
Chair resolves that the record show that the motion passes 6-0.
Great, thank you. Item 5 under discussion items is a status update of the Brother Benno's facility as it relates to their CUP, a little bit of background, and we're also looking to appoint a member to the Brother Benno's Standing Committee. A little bit of background. Louise, was it you and I that were? Yeah, you and I and Kyle that were on the standing committee a couple of years ago. I think it was during COVID. Anyway, to review the conditional use permit for Brother Benno's continued operation. And it took a while for us to get through, but I think we reached what we thought was a decent compromise in terms of how to continue to operate. Got lots of input from the community, and I see we have some folks from some officers from the Oceanside Police Department with us this evening. They too provided input, so it was a really good process, and I was eager to find out how things stand, which is one of the things we asked the planning department to do, is bring back a status report. So with that intro, Scott, if you would walk through and let us know how things are going.
All right. Thanks, guys. Chairman, members of the public, I'm Scott Nightingale, here to present agenda item number 5 for the Brother Benno's review status update. I'll give you a little intro to some of the new commissioners. Brother Benno's is located within the airport neighborhood planning area. It has been in operation since the 1990s. Located within a 12,000 square foot industrial shell building on 0.66 acres. There's approximately 24 on-site parking spaces.
I think we're going to correct the feedback.
Thought it was my cell phone or something.
Go ahead, Scott.
All right, Brother Benno's is a nonprofit organization, otherwise known as a foundation, which provides food services to low-income families and homeless individuals on a daily basis, with the exceptions of Sundays. Here's an image of the front of Brother Benno's. Brother Benno's also teams up with organizations within the San Diego County to provide services for individuals with mental health needs and also for counseling. Brother Benno's also works with the Exodus and in-home outreach, which is defined as the IHOT teams, to find housing for individuals. And they also work very closely with our Oceanside Police Department and the Oceanside's homeless outreach team for providing homeless individuals, low-income families with services. The city is well aware of the increased homeless population, and Brother Benno's has been working endlessly to help these individuals while providing services and help and working within the confinements of their approved conditions of approval, which I'll go into, to limit and stop the impacts to the neighborhood. Also, we did a little research and been communicating with OPD. The recent crime activity per the calls of service has gone down. From what I recall from our first standing committees from the early 2019, we had a huge amount of calls in this area. They've drastically decreased. We have Lieutenant Matthew Cole as well as Nathan Brazelton here to further explain that, and they'll go into that as well. And in addition to this, as we posted this on our city website, we haven't received any letters of opposition or emails, nor have I received any emails or letters since the Planning Commission meeting where we revised the conditions. So with that, it looks like they're staying in compliance with the conditions of approval. So with that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission appoint a member to the Brother Benno Standing Committee. Based on the vacancy that we have, we're required to have 3 standing committee members. At the moment, we have Luis Balma, Tom Rosales. We had Kyle Frolander, who is no longer with us. So we're looking to fill that void. And also, we, per one of the conditions, we have to, as I'm doing now, providing you guys with a status update, we have to confirm whether you guys would like another annual status update and maybe give us a specific time when you think that is appropriate.
Great, thank you, Scott. Any questions for Scott?
I still got a little bit more. I want to provide you guys with a little background.
Go ahead.
So on July 23rd, 1990, Planning Commission approved the original conditional use permit under C33 1990, and the zone basically was considered a daycare use. And at that time, I believe we called this a unique term, eleemosynary use, which is considered an independent charitable use. So that's how we allowed it through a use permit. And then on July 12th, 1993, there were some complaints that were filed regarding some of the impacts that the neighborhood felt from some of the patrons. So staff worked with the facility and revised the conditions. We revised and created new conditions to further regulate the CUP. And based on the complaints that were established, we also established conditions for security, rules of conduct, and that standing condition. And since that time, from 1993 to 2019, which is a huge gap, we had a few issues and complaints, and this was the reason we brought it back. Staff wasn't really following through with the standing committee meetings. It was kind of lost, and so we brought it back. And as you see here, Planning Commission appointed 3 planning commissioners to serve on this committee. Since the appointment, the Standing Committee held 4 meetings from 2019 to 2020 to discuss the project conditions. And as the 2 committee members know, we received some really good feedback, not only from the commissioners, but from business owners, the Brother Benno's facility themselves, and from neighbors. And from there, based on our 4 standing committees meetings, we were able to draft new conditions and revise 3 conditions. The 3 existing conditions as listed here, 33, 34, and 36. 33 was to develop a security plan. We worked with OPD and Brother Benno's to tighten that up and to basically create new language where there's more of a collaboration between OPD and Brother Benno's. Also, condition 34 was to update the rules of conduct. Basically, this is the operational management plan on how customers are supposed to act and abide by all the rules within the house there. And 36, standing committee meeting times. Just like I mentioned today, we had to beef these up. The previous ones asked for staff to bring updates every 6 months. We revised that language to have an annual report or have a standing committee meeting as needed. So only if we thought there was valid complaints, we could bring it back into the committee. So those were the 3 conditions we revised. The new conditions we established was 37. There was on-site mail occurring, mail service where people can have like a P.O. box and receive mail, which is essential to individuals getting unemployment checks or any type of counseling information they need. And so we established a new condition. It was already in their rules of conduct, but now we have more of a formal written agreement. And condition 38, we established based on some complaints we received regarding litter and loitering. So this is basically just off-site trash pickup. Brother Benno's goes out 3 times a day before services, during services, and after the service to pick up any trash on specific streets that we listed within the airport neighborhood. And lastly, they developed an ID service, which Brother Benno's is present today, and they'll probably go into that. And they work closely with OPD in establishing an appropriate ID service. If individuals act up, unfortunately, those IDs can be revoked. OPD works with them on individuals that may have criminal activity. They can review that, and it really just helps everyone out. So that's where we're at now on the background. As far as the update, like I said, they've been working closely with OPD, creating a management plan, and as you guys probably saw in the attachments, they established some new, basically rules of conduct, and per the approved conditions, have established new hours of operation, which are clearly written, basically rules of conduct for the guests. They have a new dog policy, also a security video retention plan where they work with OPD if there's any vagrant activity happening there, a meal program plan, and like I explained, the ID plan, which is they have an example of that, and they go into more detail, and it's through Mission Tracker. Brother Benno's will probably explain a little bit further. The meal service plan, as well as trash pickup. And during the height of the COVID pandemic, they even had a COVID plan. And lastly, they've devised a kind of a boilerplate checklist, just showing how they meet the use permit requirements for compliance. That's the update as of today. So the reason we're here today is also to establish a standing committee member. So after this, there will have to be discussions, and you appoint one of the members here will sit in the 3rd vacancy seat. So with that, staff recommends that Planning Commission appoint a member of the Brother Benno's Standing Committee and confirm and establish some type of date for the next compliance update. So that concludes my presentation. After answering your questions, I'll be on the sidebar.
Great, thank you. Scott, any questions for Scott? Yeah, go ahead.
Back on to, thank you. First off, I'm so glad to hear that Brother Benno's and the neighborhood, as everybody's been tightening it up, it's getting along, everyone's getting along. It's like I've actually noticed it myself that it looks improved. So thank you for all your hard work, because I know it's hard work to try to get all the stuff you guys have to do. The mail service, wasn't that something that we had talked about before, that there was actually a time limit to that? It was like so many years. I forgot what it was now. But It was something. Maybe that's the reason when we bring our next person onto the standing committee, we can actually review that and see if there's anything we need to do further, because I know that was a very important piece for your clients, and understand why it needs to be there. And so I know that I thought we had a time limit on that, like it was so many years, we were going to look at it again or something. But I just wanted to know what that was, and that's pretty much all my questions right now.
Thanks, Commissioner Balma. Captain, if I could maybe get one of you to come on up to the dais. And I know one of the things we talked a lot about when we had the standing committee earlier or a couple years ago were some of the metrics and some of the calls that OPD was seeing back when it was a little more problematic. So before I ask Brother Benno's staff to come up, if maybe I get a little insight from the OPD rep about how things are different today versus how they were maybe in 2018, 2019 when we took up this issue.
When we first started.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Long story short, Brother Benno's has become a pretty good steward of their facility. With that conversation, communication, they've definitely added an accountability piece that may have been absent before, a little more lax, and we've seen a lot of benefits from that. I'll speak specifically to the mail service. At one point, there was a 1-year limit on that. However, the PD's position is we're ambivalent to that, because services often take longer than a 1 year for somebody to be able to be in those services. So our stance is, as long as there's good stewardship of this location, these services, these are important services that need to be accessible to people. Mm-hmm. However, what we have now is accountability. So charity without accountability is kind of cruelty. So this has helped it come a long way. As far as the calls for service, they've diminished significantly. And as I said, the Brother Benno staff has been very cooperative with our staff in mitigating issues as they do come up.
That's really good to hear, and I like the term you use, stewardship, about their obligations, given that this is a conditional use permit. I presume thank you, sir. I presume that we've got some Brother Benno staff here or representatives. Would you like to come up and add anything, any context to what we've just been chatting about? Nothing formal, no presentation, just you heard some of the dialogue. If you want to add anything to that. If you could give us your name, if you would, for the record.
Oh, yeah, I'm Ben Meyer. I'm the Essential Services Manager of the Brother Bennos. And I had we all worked together writing all these policies, sort of revising the protocol and all that. And I think, as it's been stated many times, a large part of the problem there in the past was really confined to a small group of individuals that have kind of embedded themselves in that neighborhood, worked really hard in conjunction with OP, our staff, to I'll let them know they're not going to receive services from us anymore, and open up a dialogue with the rest of guests that we have throughout the neighborhood, whether they're unsheltered or low-income families, to let them know that part of doing that is not to cut services off, but to show we're there to provide a safe environment for our neighbors, for our volunteers, for our guests, for everybody. By getting rid of those 22 some odd individuals out of the well over 2,000 plus guests that are signed up to Mission Tracker, it's had an obvious impact on all of our neighbors. And so working in conjunction with them has made it a lot easier to address them.
Again, for what it's worth, I'm really pleased with that, because we struggled mightily with some of the issues that were in front of us during that roughly 2-year period where we were trying to consider, do we continue with this or do we go a different direction? So this is really, really nice to hear. Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Dodd?
There was a mention, we talked about metrics, and there was a mention of a significant decrease in the amount of complaints. Do you have a number as far as the percentage or the amount of decline of complaints for that period that we're talking about?
I myself don't.
Maybe it's a question for OPD if you have that number off the top of your head. If not, then it could be something, Commissioner Dawes, that we bring back from the standing committee more formally, unless you have an answer. Okay, fair enough. Okay, so that's a good item, because I'm curious too to see kind of where were we and where we are today versus in the past. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. So good news.
Good news.
Sounds like things are working pretty well, and we hope it'll stay that way. And thank you, Scott, for that update. So we're also looking for somebody who's interested on the commission to serve in that vacant position.
You have an interest.
Commissioner Dodds, I see.
I think Commissioner Dodds would like to step up to the plate.
That would be terrific. And I think we only meet as needed. So we need a couple of things. We need a member for the standing committee, and then we need to determine when we want to hear back from staff. So let's tackle one at a time. So any other interest, or is there an interest that we appoint Commissioner Dodds to that standing committee?
I have an interest that we appoint Commissioner Dodds.
Great. And we have what we call a motion by Commissioner
I'll
Custers.
call it a motion that we appoint.
And then a second by Vice Chair Morrissey. So any other discussion? If not, welcome Commissioner Dodds to the standing committee. Okay, standing committee members or commissioners, when do we think we want to hear back from Scott and staff? It's what, May? 6 months? 12 months?
Yeah, that's good. 6 months.
6 months? Okay, so I think it was proposed maybe November-ish. Bring back kind of where we stand, and maybe at that point we can bring back some statistics or metrics.
Sure. Chairman Rosales, you can schedule that for a Plan Commission meeting in November.
Yep. Perfect.
You know, one thing I might suggest to our standing committee members, and this is not something, I just thought of this tonight because I've talked to several people who have actually volunteered at Brother Benno's to help with the feeding or just one of the services you guys provide. And it was an enlightening experience for every one of the people I've ever talked to, how rewarding and how amazing it is what Brother Benno's does. I just thought like maybe a standing committee might want to just go one step further and just maybe volunteer one time and just to see kind of from the inside and just to meet some of your clients too, because I know that's kind of where you really touch people and they really are appreciative. Because I know there's the people that you serve are different than the people that a lot of the homeless people that are still living out there that don't want any rules. And in fact, I make a point to talk to these people and I always ask them, have you gone to Brother Benno's? They do everything. No, they have too many rules. I'm not into that. I can't handle those guys. It's just like, well, you know, because I know you guys are doing a good job because the ones I talk to, they don't want anything to do with Brother Benno's. They want to just live like they, you know, the mavericks that they are out in the river. So anyway, but it might be kind of fun to volunteer. I don't know if you guys are, I'm into it. Maybe all of us should volunteer.
Well, again, thanks OPD staff for your input, and I'm glad things are working out well. So we'll move on then to commissioner reports. I don't really have anything this evening. Thanks again. I don't have anything to add this evening. Vice Chair Morrissey?
Yeah, I just want to, you know, I've been using the swimming pool, the new William Wagner pool. That is a fantastic facility.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing I think you could use is a clock on the outside, so I know how long I've been swimming. But anyway, that is such an amazing facility, and the whole community is using it. It's so nice to see everybody using it, and little kids running, and yeah, it's great. So shout out for the city on that.
Yeah, I got to get over there and learn how to swim better than I do. Commissioner Obama, any reports?
No, after my last little mention of the appeals process, I got slammed on social media, so I have no reports this time.
Hopefully that doesn't squash your spirit, though.
Oh, no, it's not squashing. I just don't know if I want to feed anybody's frenzy.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Dodds, welcome. Any reports for this evening?
Nothing to report.
Great. Commissioner Simons?
Nothing for me.
And I'm sorry, I skipped you, Commissioner Custer.
Nothing to report.
Great. City Planner?
Chairman Rosales, we got just a couple upcoming items for future planning commissions coming up shortly. At your meeting on May 23rd, there'll be an item for an addition and remodel at 1229 South Pacific Street, so it'll be a regular coastal permit. There'll also be an item related to a development plan revision for an existing service station at Melrose Drive and Oceanside Boulevard. They're expanding a car wash there. And most importantly, we'll be bringing back an updated general plan alternatives report for the Planning Commission to consider and make a recommendation to City Council on. Moving out to the meeting of June 13th, we have a small mixed-use project at 802 South Pacific Street, so it'll be a regular coastal permit and development plan, conditional use permit. There's also a new psychiatric facility being constructed at Tri-City Hospital that'll be coming towards you, and potentially the Ocean Camp project may be at that meeting. There's a couple moving parts that we're waiting to fall into place to see if we could actually agendize it for that date or not, but so that might be coming your way on June 13th. And then going to City Council, going back a little bit, at their meeting on May 4th, the City Council did uphold the Planning Commission's approval of the Chem Station conditional use permit application, and they did approve a general plan amendment, zone amendment for that parcel at Mission and Douglas that the Commission considered on March 28th. And moving out to the meeting of June 22nd, we don't have any items until then. There's no planning-related items until June 22nd. Both the appeals for the Whaley Street project and Cypress Point projects will be heard that evening, in addition to the general plan alternatives. We do have one business to maybe just discuss with the Planning Commission. Typically, we send out paper packets of the agenda packet for your consideration and use for ahead of these meetings. We were just wanting to gauge your appetite for maybe moving to an all electronic format. I know that becomes tricky when there's big projects with big formatted plans. So we just wanted to assess whether or not that's something that the Planning Commission might consider moving forward for future meetings. We don't have to make a decision tonight, but maybe something to consider, and we can revisit that at the next meeting. It just would save a little bit of time and paperwork and make the transmission of the packet a little bit easier for us, but we're happy to continue in the current format if that's the Planning Commission's desire. And then finally, the city clerk is accepting applications for the vacancy created with Commissioner Hayes' resignation. So they're accepting applications, city clerk's office, until May 15th for that vacancy on the Planning Commission.
On that, since we just went through a round of interviews for the vacancies or consideration for reappointment for a couple of other positions in March, do you have a sense that the City Council may just go back to that list and pull from that, or they may pull from that list but consider new applicants?
That's a good question. Typically, the city clerk's office handles the review of those applications, Chairman Rosales. I think what the previous experience was, there was a combination of old applications that had been received and considered and new applications since the posting of the unscheduled vacancy notice by the city clerk's office. So I'm guessing that's going to be a combination of both.
Yeah, okay, that's great. To the question you had about electronic versus paper, yeah, I mean, it's a dilemma. I mean, we understand the logic and reason for wanting to get away from paper. I can only speak for myself that I do okay with electronics depending on the size and in the complexity of what I'm trying to read. I find it easier to have something in front of me and be focused as opposed to electronically. And then the size, if we're looking at a staff report or attachments where you're looking at a wad like that, the electronic version is really hard for me anyway, to work through versus I don't know, my style is to write notes in the margins and all of that stuff. So, yeah, that's just me.
I agree. I definitely prefer paper. Today, I even printed part of it for the report for the budget so that I could read it. That wasn't in our packet.
I think I recall when we went electronic or semi-electronic a while back, I found myself oftentimes printing out some, maybe not all the reports, again, to help me write in the margins or spend more time on leafing through it, whatever. So, yeah.
I mean, we used to get like the EIRs printed out, and now we get them all on the thumb drive. So we've really done a good job of slimming down the paperwork. And a lot of times all the plans we don't get as much either. So, I mean, we have slimmed down a lot of the paperwork. I kind of like something, I guess. Like, I mean, just a little bit we get now is just enough for me to still go I dive into the computer and get into the rest of it. But I kind of like the way it is right now. It's slimmed down from what we used to have. So if we could just keep it like that.
Again, Commissioners, Chair Rosales, we're happy to continue the current practice of paper agenda packets. We just wanted to assess the appetite for it at this time. We can do a little bit better job making sure that those agenda packets are delivered in a more timely manner, so we'll continue down that road. I appreciate your consideration, at least of our request, so thank you.
And I guess the question of use of equipment. So the screens we have in front of us, usually they'll display, the presentations and whatnot. Does it have the capability where if we went electronically, we could actually sit here and scroll through the electronic versions? Because otherwise I'm thinking back to how we used to do it, I'd be bringing my laptop and I'd have it all on there. So then we need power and whatnot. So, but do these allow us to kind of bring it up and then scroll through that way, or no?
If Chairman Rosales, my understanding of the system is it just mirrors what's on the laptop there, so it'd be probably difficult to be able to utilize those screens in front of you at this point. But again, we're happy to continue with the paper packets for now, and we'll maybe assess it in a couple years. Thank you.
You bet. Yeah, go ahead.
I have one comment about the master plan. We're going to be reviewing, I guess, the master plan without the South Moore Hills Community Plan on our next May 23rd meeting, correct? That's what you said, I think.
The general plan, you mean?
The next planning commission, we're going to be.
Commissioner Balma, yes, you'll be seeing some revised alternatives. There will now be two alternatives, neither of which include any growth beyond what we're calling the status quo for South Morro Hills. The South Morro Hills community plan is still proceeding forward. It's just going to take a different parallel timing for that plan as opposed to going as part of the general plan update.
I talked to Russ about that in length, so I kind of got a little bit of brief on that. But one of the things I suggested to him, and one of the things I think the public doesn't realize, and also maybe possibly some of our commissioners, is that the status quo is that there's still 900 homes that can be built out there, just based on the 2.5 acres. And there's no preservation for agriculture as we have it in our South Morro community plan. So you can just cut up the property into 2.5 acres, and there's nothing there to preserve agriculture, and there's nothing there to actually add any infrastructure for those 900 extra homes for fire safety. And I don't know if you remember correctly, that last fire that I lived through that we tried to evacuate, it was hours to get out of there, and it's pretty scary. So to be able to say status quo is kind of really, it's going to be hard. So we don't want to push the South Morro Hills Community Plan down the road too far. As I told Russ, we don't want to disconnect the caboose, because now we're putting it on the end of the train here, right? And if we disconnect it too far, it means a new EIR, which that could be another expensive thing for the city. So I think we should keep this thing moving. And I know we hear from a lot of the people that have come to the dais that have told us they don't want it. They want to keep it just like it is, which is just what I said, 900 homes, no infrastructure, no preservation for agriculture. But you got to hear tonight from Neil Nagata, one of those few farmers, there's not that many. Out of all the land out there, there's only maybe 10 or 12. I'm not exactly sure how many farmers there are that are commercial farmers that have worked with the city and the neighborhood and the citizens and all the different groups here to come up with this plan. So it's really kind of hard that a few people can voice opinions, and we hear a lot of them, and then we've disconnected that component from our master plan. So I just want to make sure that within that alternative in the statement, and I told Russ the same thing, can you just at least say that it says 900, because I know the city staffs all agreed that 900 homes is 900 homes. It could actually be more. If you divide up 3,500 acres to 2.5, it comes out to more like, I think it's 1,400 or something, but we figure out there's got to be, environmental, there's roads, there's a lot of things, and that's why we narrowed it down to 900. So that should be stated someplace in there so people get it. Because they think it's status quo just means just like it is right now, which I would love it to stay like that, but I'm not a commercial farmer. I can't do that. So
for clarification, Commissioner Obama, clearly status quo just means that we're not going to change, the alternatives that you'll be considering would just mean that no zoning changes for South Morro Hill compared to what the South Morro Hills community plan had. So it doesn't mean that there's not going to be growth out there. So all those things you mentioned, there won't be provisions for ag preservation under the status quo, so to speak. Status quo may be a bad term to use, maybe just no change in zoning at this point. But again, the South Morro Hills community plan is still moving forward under the current framework. We're just analyzing a few more items that a little deeper than were previously analyzed with the previous alternatives that came towards this body.
All right.
I've been part of a lot of like environmental impact statements where the no action alternative is basically the same thing as status quo, which really had the most negative impacts. So, when you're considering all the alternatives, that should be in there too. Is like, what are the impacts of doing nothing? It could be severe. They could have, right. So that just needs to be included, I think,
900 homes with no way to get out of there. It's severe.
Yes.
Good commentary. Okay, unless there's something else, we stand adjourned until May 23rd. Thank you.